By the end of today's episode, you'll know all about the likability factor and why it is so critical to getting booked. Welcome to the Actor's Career Compass, where we help aspiring screen actors find high-quality auditions, sign with great agents, and book major roles in legit productions. I'm your host, Martin Benson, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about being likable and how to use that likability factor to deliver more memorable performances that casting directors and agents take note of. So what is the likability factor? Well, this is something that I teach coaching clients. I coined this unofficial term, likability factor, to essentially explain how likable you are. Okay, it's very, very simple. It's about you yourself and the character you play. The likability factor, basically the more likable that someone is, the more likely that they are to be remembered and given opportunities. Now, again, applies to both your personality and your performance. So we're going to talk about both. So when it comes to your personality, obviously, if you're not likable, people aren't going to want to work with you, and you're going to seem standoffish to people. Even people that tons of people despise, though, can be likable to the right people. Okay, so let's take Donald Trump, for example. All right. I am recording this prior to the election, so I don't know what the results are. This is not a political discussion, but we're going to use Donald Trump as an example. Okay, so many people absolutely despise Donald Trump. They find his personality despicable, which is obviously very understandable, right? On the other hand, though, half the country at least seems to like him. And so you have to wonder why. What about him is likable? Well, in general, it has to do with how he says certain things, not necessarily what he says. Again, I'm just explaining what some people feel or have talked to me about, right? So, for example, if he says a phrase like, "That person is such an idiot," which is something that he probably says all the time, right? Probably worse things than that. But one person might think, well, that's unprofessional for someone in politics to say, which makes him unlikable. And while on one hand that's true, on the other hand, some people like the fact that he talks like them, right? So a lot of people might say things like that or even think things like that to themselves, right? So they might see a bit of themselves in the way he phrases things. It's like, oh, he kind of talks like a normal person who would say that person is such an idiot, right? So by being unprofessional and speaking in such a way that makes him seem crude and horrible, some people relate to it and think, hey, he kind of talks like me sometimes, so I like that. And that relatability makes him likable to certain people. Okay, remember, we're not talking about whether it's good or bad, whether it's substantive or not. This is not a political discussion. It's simply an observation of what different people find likable in others. The likability factor, as I call it, is the ability to make your character relatable to viewers. Not to every viewer, but to the right viewers. So when people see a bit of themselves in your character, they instantly and unconsciously will like your performance more. If they're a casting director and they like that, unconsciously, again, they're going to have a higher likelihood of booking you for the role. The likability factor is critical for both good characters and bad characters, okay? Protagonists and antagonists. So even the most horrible of characters need something for the audience to latch onto, something for them to relate to. Otherwise, the audience is going to be bored and disinterested in the character, or they're going to feel like the character isn't believable, right? So think about a horrible character like Frank Underwood in House of Cards. If you've ever watched the show, he does horrible things, but the audience likes him. They're still rooting for him. And so it's interesting, but because his character is likable, you kind of feel like, ooh, I want to watch this. Even if you don't like the character themselves, you like certain aspects about them, which makes you want to see more. So how do you capture the likability factor in your performance? Well, in general, the easiest way to do it is by finding the positive motivation behind negative actions. So if your character is supposed to be, let's say, yelling, like they're angry or they're annoyed or they're mean or terrible, you cannot simply use that as a directive for how to play the character. Instead, you need to find the why behind the negative. Let's use this example of you're trying to play a character who is supposed to be angry or annoyed. And let's just pretend that they're supposed to be like a bad character in the film, like they're the antagonist, they're the bad guy or something, right? You, to play that character authentically and at least add some of that likability factor into your performance so that, let's say, a casting director who's watching your audition or an audience who's watching you perform actually can relate and not get disinterested or feel like your performance isn't real. You have to figure out some strong reasons why the character is supposed to be so bad or why they're so angry. And these must be reasons that link to a positive trait or outcome, okay? So, for example, let's say that it's a man, right? And he's very angry, okay? Why? Because let's say the woman shows up late to their lunch, right? Let's say that they're married and the guy is angry, the woman is late, okay? So the question is why does that make the guy angry? Okay? You can't just play anger. You have to be, why does it make him angry? So maybe you could say, well, because he doesn't like being taken advantage of and thrown all over the place, and he feels like she is just not treating him well. Okay, well, fine, that makes him angry, but that's still not a positive reason. Okay, we need to come to a deeper positive reason. So why does that make him angry? Well, maybe she's frequently late and it's starting to wear on him. Or he just wishes that there was a way for this relationship to work and he cares about her and her lateness is starting to wear on him. Or he just kind of feels like she doesn't care as much about the relationship anymore and he is feeling really bad about it and just wishes that there was a way that it would stop, right? And so that is what's causing him to get angry. Okay, so now we can see a real positive reason behind the surface level negative emotion of anger, right? He is actually a good person and wishes that the relationship was better. And in his interactions with her during the scene, the fact that the actor who's playing this character has a positive intent behind the negativity of anger, the character is going to be more relatable and real to the audience, which is going to make that character more likable. And therefore, the audience will actually feel for that character as they watch the scene. They're going to connect with it more because most people have a positive reason behind doing negative things most of the time. Okay, I'm not saying all the time, just saying most of the time. And that is what makes a performance strong and what will make the audience connect to it. It's going to make the performance more real because almost everyone believes that they're doing what they're doing for good reasons. And because of that fact, because everyone, including casting directors who might be watching an audition, almost everybody has a good inner core, it means that they're also going to be more likely to relate to the performance and enjoy watching it if you also choose to find that good inner core behind the negative things that the character is doing on the surface. There are generally pretty few downsides to using the likability factor for your auditions, okay? If you prefer, you could call it the relatability factor. How do you make your character more relatable, again, more likable to an audience? By finding the good behind the bad, the good intention behind the bad action. Making your character more relatable and likable is a simple way to get noticed and increase your chances of getting a callback. Well, thanks for listening. Now, if you want to dive even deeper on acting technique, I highly recommend checking out my podcast called How to Use the 4 Levels of Acting to Book Major Auditions. That is episode number 45. I talk in depth about how to vastly improve your acting technique and make your performances more real, especially when it comes to screen acting. Again, it's episode number 45, the 4 Levels of Acting to Book Major Auditions on the Actor's Career Compass. Now, finally, if you'd like to get some personalized advice, I'd love to hop on a quick Zoom call with you. We'll take a look at where you are, what you're struggling with, and figure out what the best next steps are for you to take. We can discuss if one of my one-to-one coaching programs might be a good fit for you. So whenever you're ready, just visit martinbenson.com and you can set it up there. I'd love to meet with you. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.